wanted to try to kick it off, and I want to start off by saying thank MDPC, Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church, for hosting this tremendous meal. Let's give MDPC a hand. Fantastic. Thank you. I would like to introduce a few special guests today, just to let you know that there's some other folks behind the Friends of Faithful Fathering. A couple of dear friends are Peter Forbes and Tony Mayer. They're dear friends of mine and of our ministry. They were instrumental several years ago on a presentation we were blessed to make at the Barnabas Group. And that started a catalyst for a lot of the things you're going to hear about today. So I thank Tony and Peter for taking the time to be here. I also want to recognize Chris Garcia. Chris is a dear friend. If you see this logo, Chris shared his gifts of graphic design with us and put this on his heart. But the logo of the cross the Lord's given me to carry, and then the cross of Christ over that is the image that we have in the logo that you see on the paperwork in front of you. And that just means an awful lot. Chris, thank you for doing that and pulling this together. It also happens for you, I'm an engineer, so I didn't see this, but Chris pointed it out. If you didn't see it, it happens to make a mirrored F with the crosses as well. So that's for the artistic ones here that you probably picked that up initially, but us engineers need help. Steve, you and me, right? Also want to introduce a dear friend, John Murphy. John is from Grace Pres, and John is just a fabulous dad and a member of the Dads of Grace, and he's agreed to help video this, capture some of this, as my board has been after me for years to try to video some of these things that we do. So John, thank you for your heart and for being here. I also want to recognize three board members here, Jerry Gallion. We have Norman Feist, and he's back here standing up, and Brendan O'Neill. These are board members here. If you have any questions or you want to talk to anyone afterwards, one of these three guys or I are the ones to connect with. And finally, the testimonies today will be from several dear friends of the ministry. We have Shawn Williamson with the Dads of Grace is here. Clint Harrington with MDPC Dads, and finally Brett Hurst, a staff member here at Memorial Drive. They'll be sharing some testimonies of faithful fathering and their respective dads' initiatives. And finally, my most important person in my life, my bride, Linda, is back here and back. We celebrate 34 years next month. That says a lot about her resiliency, not much about my husbandry. So she's a tough girl. So I wanted to welcome you again, and I thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I do want a couple things. What's on your table? The binder on your table is pretty much what I'll be talking out of. If you have room, then feel free to open it up as I walk through this as you can. But that binder is representative of what we're going to be covering today. You have an agenda that there's obviously no times because, like I said, I want flexibility to go all afternoon. But you've got the agenda of how we're going to flow here this lunch period. And on the back is room for notes, and there's also some questions for contemplation afterwards that will be part of our discussion as well. The other two flyers you see, there's an Adventures for Life Father-Son Retreat I'm putting out there, and then there's a Being There Father-Daughter Retreat in November as well. And just wanted to let you know there's certain retreats we do across the year that are open across all church lines. I do a number of retreats that are church specific, like Crossroads Baptist, Sagemont Church. We do some father-son retreats, father-daughter retreats that are church specific. But I like to, because I always say I'm of the capital C church, I like to have a retreat that's open to all denominations, and we just enjoy a weekend together, and that's a powerful time. On the back of the father-daughter, there is a tip for dads that you can read through here in a few minutes. We'll have some audio, and that always helps to have that audio read through. So that's what is on your table, and I hope it's not too cluttered there for you, but I also hope that it gives you at least a visual for what we're up to. Why am I here? My wake-up call came about 20 years ago. I'll give just a snapshot, so those who don't know my story, but growing up as a Catholic kid, I had two prayers as a young man. One was I'd be blessed with a happy and healthful marriage and family that I didn't know growing up. My dad was a violent alkie. All three of my sisters left early. out of the house. I was the last one around, and I left at age 13. I also had a prayer that I'd be somewhere above the poverty line that we'd grown up well below. And so that's where I was at. I was blessed through some athleticism to have an opportunity to get an education, got a good job, and jumped on that career, that corporate world, working on that poverty line issue. I got focused on those dollars. I happened to get married in 1980, and our daughter came along in 86, our son in 88, but I was busy. You know what busy stands for? Being under Satan's yoke. Just something to keep a note of. Being under Satan's yoke. And I was traveling 75–80% of the time. We'd moved 9 times in 15 years. And I came back from an extended business trip about 2 weeks away. And walking through the house on a mid-morning, Saturday morning, I was heading back to the office to wrap up paperwork, get ready for Monday morning battle, right? And I looked out the back window and I asked my bride, I said, "Who's that out there playing with Amanda?" And she said, "That's your son. You're traveling too much." She said just like that, not judgmentally, good Kansas farm girl. Obviously, you know, she has just tremendous patience and endurance, but she just said it that simply. The Holy Spirit wasn't quite that gentle. He said, "Boy, I've answered your prayers, and you're taking these blessings for granted. Furthermore, I'm losing a generation because of dads like you." And that began this journey 20 plus years ago. Little did I know that some statistics were going to validate what the Holy Spirit put on my heart. That was that marriages are failing half the time. I think Brett told me the other day that we're now crossing over couples that cohabitate or just stay unmarried versus those that are married. We have 40% of kids wake up with dads out not in the home. 50% of kids under 18 will live with just one parent sometime through their life. And we have over half the babies being born to women under 25 or being born to single women. And that doesn't throw in the in vitro and the things that women have no intention of ever getting married, that have opportunities to have kids on their own. So these things are that's what's happening to the family. And secondly is the societal woes that result from that is that kids are twice as likely to drop out of high school. Young men are 10 times as likely to have behavioral problems. Kids are 4 times as likely to live below the poverty line without dad around. And finally, young ladies are 3 times as likely to become teen mothers than those that have dads engaged in their lives. So these are the things that are out there percolating in society. What shocked me is that the statistics inside the body of Christ and outside the body of the Christ mirror each other. And that's an issue. That's what my initial calling was back in 1994, is that he said, let's wake up the men in the body of Christ so that the church can be the church. You know, one of the things that George Will, an editorialist, one of my favorites because of his baseball passion and some other great opinions, but he said you can't fix education until you fix families. And my contention is that sometimes we're too much in a fix mode. We know what the solution is, yeah? The solution is Jesus the Christ, and understanding how we build that relationship, live that relationship in marriage, and reflect it in family. And so that's the solution, is to get dads engaged in raising a godly generation in marriage and in family. And that's where I wanted to, that's where the mission and the direction of faithful fathering is number one is that we do want to encourage and equip dads to be what we call faithful fathers. By definition, a faithful father prioritizes physical presence, is engaged emotionally, and leads spiritually by example. If we do those 3 things, we got a lot going for us. I was 0 on all 3 accounts for a number of years. Our vision, of course, is to engage dads in raising a godly generation. And how do we do that? Well, what the Lord put on our heart a few years ago is a question, you know, how can we invest in leadership to engage dads? You see, I spent the first 10 years, by the way, this ministry was founded in May of 2000. I spent over 10 years doing workshops and studies in churches, and felt like I was doing good, you know, doing good work. But I really got the impression that sometimes I was just enabling a church to check the dad box, that something had been done for dads this week or this month or this year. And I was convicted that I wasn't really building relationships with dads. And so I went back to a couple of churches that have blessed me over the years, MDPC for over 10 years, and Sagemont Church, 8, 9 years, that I've done virtually every talk I could give, and they still tolerated me, and we just enjoyed that. I had some relationships built. So I said, how about initiating a core group and running some pilots on how this works? And they both entertained the idea, and God took it from there, and you'll hear some of that as we go on. But the model that he put on my heart was this, was a 4-point strategy or platform to illuminate, educate, connect, and lead. And as we walk through that briefly here, I just want to share that what Illuminate is keeping those issues, the influence and the impact of dads very visible all the time on dads' minds, to make sure they understand how important they are. We get slapped down by society pretty routinely. There's been a few of those things going on the past few weeks. Dads are, overbearing, overzealous in their discipline and all this stuff. I'm not condoning any of that. I'm just saying that that's kind of the image Dad has. We're out of control. And so our encouragement here is to really invest in dads, create some opportunities to plug into some activities, easy to engage in activities. So you'll see here, this is on Memorial Drive's athletic grounds out there, rigging up tents. We had 100 plus for the last, this will be our 3rd year, huh, Clint? Is that right? Third overnight and tailgate here at Memorial Drive. Just dads out there having fun. We sneak a devotion in on them, just to let them know that this is about Christ. But it's a fun time, a lot of games and a lot of engagement. And then you get up in the morning and come into church. They do cordon off a corner in the way back because they're kind of smelly and what have you. But it's a great fun environment, and dads and kids. I remember first year was the year that the Aggies beat Auburn, or Alabama rather, beat Alabama. And Dave got up there and said, "Hey, what is the moon and the Aggie? What do the moon and the Aggies have in common?" And I don't know. It says they both control the tide, and and. The dads whooped and the kids whooped, and the kids said, "I can really do this in church?" It was just a neat environment. So it created some energy, and that was the whole purpose, of course. We have some others overnight at the cross down here at Sagemont. Dads of Grace had a tremendous turnout last year at the overnight. We have another one scheduled October 18th. And it's a high energy thing. The other things that have been done, Sagemont has what's called a Goofy Olympics, where we just have an afternoon of goofy games and fun, and again, engage some young dads. The other things we have are radio spots.
Encouraging and equipping dads to become heroes in their children's eyes. That's the goal of the Faithful Fathering Initiative in Texas. And here's Rick Wertz.
Following is a tip for dads from the Faithful Fathering Initiative in Texas.
In the beginning, I was your daughter, your pride and joy, and you were my dad. There were no complications. 5 years passed. I stole the role of your shadow, trailing behind you wherever you went, afraid if I left for even a moment, you would be gone when I returned. 10 years passed. I slowly began to wander away from your embrace, exploring the world around me, all the while leaving behind the world you had made for me. 15 years passed. I experienced the sounds of angry shouting when I went against your rules, and the lectures that came afterward. And you heard the sound of my bedroom door slam like a thunderbolt crashing down against the house. And now we both hear the sound of silence, with the occasional "hi" thrown in somewhere. Both busy in our separate lives, there's no time to talk anymore.
In Ephesians 4:26 and 27, Paul instructs us to not let the sun go down on your anger. Do not give the devil a foothold. The message to us dads is that when a door slams, physically or emotionally, we need to be intentional in our efforts to open that door and to keep it open.
Sometimes I wish I could go back 12 years or so I could be your pride and joy again. So there would be no complications, so that I could play the role of your shadow like I used to.
Dad, there is no going back. Daughters and sons can drift away from us through the teenage years, but by staying involved physically, emotionally, and spiritually, the drift can be minimized. Tips include taking your daughter out for ice cream, scheduling a father-son or a father-daughter retreat, and ending every day in prayer with your child. As you choose to be intentional about building stronger relationships with your children, you will become a hero in their eyes.
If KHCB isn't your favorite radio station, make it your favorite radio station. They've opened the door for us to play radio spots regularly. We're also a regular guest on their Vital Issues in the Christian Home. They have a tremendous heart for fathers and family, and they're my favorite radio station for sure. So that's one of the things we do to keep things in front of dads, to keep them in tune with how important and how significant they are. Another spot we have here is a public service announcement we put together a couple of years ago, and this actually plays on the cube, courtesy of John, and a few other areas, places. But I want to share this real quick as well.
A live report, we dig deeper into why several racing dogs have become ill. Then a big break in stopping gang violence. The arrest investigators just made and how they track those suspects down. Unpopular break.
Staying connected is important, particularly in family around the dinner table. Dad, be there for your family. Prioritize your physical presence. Be engaged emotionally and lead spiritually by example. Take the initiative. Be a faithful father.
We're connected in a lot of ways, aren't we, technologically? That look like some of your dinner tables at home, you know? That's what we're fighting, this technology distraction. But I did tip my cap to Brendan O'Neill and his beautiful family for opening their home and allowing us to tape that there. So the point on this, this whole illumination deal is to make sure the light is shining brightly. I love John 8:12. It says, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." You see, there's a lot of darkness trying to engulf our dads and men and families these days. And we need to be that bright light, amen? And just keep that light shining day in, day out, and to encourage and equip these dads as we move forward. The next area is the educate piece, and this is what the workshops and studies that would encourage dads to, these are in your booklet here, binder as well, but these are specific studies we've put together over the years. Dad's Armor, just put on the full armor of God as you walk as a man, dads becoming heroes. Nehemiah Initiative, we encourage dads to build a spiritual wall to protect their mind, their heart, their family, their marriage, and that's a study we have as well. And this is an example of Sagemont Church, to do Sunday school for dads. We had the opportunity to, dads will take on a dimension. They don't have to use faithful fathering stuff. If there's anything on their heart, then I'm there to help put material together that would fit into their environment. And so MDPC has a dad that has taken that to another whole level to research and put his training program. But the focus here is to make sure that we're grounding dads. You see, men typically do what our dad did, or they go the opposite direction, neither of which is necessarily healthy. Our job is to encourage dads to calibrate that life to the Word of God. And as we do that, then we ground them and make sure that what they're doing is scripturally grounded and that they're walking in truth, so that we do shine the light in the relativity of this world. So I love the passage from Deuteronomy that we're supposed to do this when we're walking along the road, when we lay down, when we get up. We're speaking contagious. It's not necessarily what we're doing, it's how we're living that we influence our kids. So the educate piece is very important cog as we move through this. Finally, the connect area is the area where we nurture relationships to a new level with our Heavenly Father, Heavenly Father, child, and Father-child, so that we're together and growing and maturing all the time. The connect cards are an area that provide a specific structured discussion between dads and kids. Being their adventure weekends, we talked a little bit about. These are dedicated times away from technology to connect to new levels of relationship. We take daughters ages 11 to 18 because that's the window of time where our little girl is kind of changing into a young lady, isn't she? And that's an awkward time for dad. So to have an intentional effort to address that during that window of time actually solidifies that relationship. And so those are things that we try to do. And we have a same thing for fathers and young sons. We also have a father-son passage event that we'll be doing in December as well. There's a flyer on your table about that. But the whole idea here is to provide an environment that's free of some noise and technology of the world to have a weekend getaway. And then finally, we also have introduced some summer adventures. Peter and I were blessed 10 years ago this summer to do a Christ in the Tetons adventure with our sons. And I did one with my daughter several years before that out in the Sierra Nevadas. These were foundational week-long experiences that really encouraged and were foundational in our relationship as we matured. And so it was been on my heart for a number of years to find a way to do that in our ministry. So that's what we're doing. Real quick, the structured card, there's a couple in your binder there. But these this broke my heart. There's a Barna survey, I think it was just last year, actually, it was in his book, I think maybe 2 years ago, but he said that less than 1 in 10 families attending church have any spiritual discussion in between Sundays. That's a problem. And so I always tell dads, I say, just take the passage the pastor spoke from and talk about it at Sunday dinner. You know, do something. You know, we all need dinner together. Well, that's another issue. Let's start eating dinner together. And you know, so there's a lot of things tugging at families, you see. But until dads get intentional to do something different, it's going to continue to spiral. So that's our challenge, is to provide these things maybe a couple of times a month or whatever, to have these cards that provide some scriptural referencing for dads to have a casual conversation with their child.
I remember we did the rock climb, and he's very athletic and very agile, and he had no problems getting up there to a certain point, you know, and I was there side by side, and then I just remember that moment that was where he just stopped. How he had to reach for that last step, and he couldn't make it. And I stuck my hand out for him, told him, step my hand, take my hand, I'll help you. And as I was trying to boost him up to that last grip, my right hand started slipping due to the sweat, and I wasn't sure how much longer I was going to be able to hold on. But I got him there quick enough to be able to bring my left hand up, grab it, we both made it up, then did the zip line. And in the end, I remember when Mr. Rick asked us, you know, what do we got out of it? I remember that was the one thing that I thought about when I had to take the analogy was, in life, I want to be there. I want to be there to help him take that next step, to be successful, to succeed.
That's an example of being their young son. Andy Kelly is a doc. He's a dad of Crossroads Baptist, and he was an Iraqi vet, and he was actually deployed when his son was to be born. He thought he was going to miss it, and then that deployment got delayed a couple of months, so he was able to be there for the birth, but then he was gone for about 2 years. And so it was very significant for him to be there for his son, and that was an example and a testimony from our Being There retreat. This is a case for our father-daughter hiking trip. This is a week in the San Juan Mountains. We partner with a ministry called Voice of Wilderness. For daughters, we do day hikes. Young ladies tend to like running water at night. So we honor that, and we have one night on the trail so they can say they roughed it. But it's just a fun week out there to enjoy some time to connect. And so these, on the father-son, we have a father-son backpacking trip that is 5 days on the trail. We typically hike in 1 or 2 days and then set up base camp and go drop a line in the water, the Los Pinos up at Granite Lake or what have you. This is down around Pagosa Springs. And just a terrific week together to, again, and each evening we have structured time around a topic for the evening. So we have a discussion around the campfire and then what we call tent talk as they wrap up the night to connect to a new level of relationship. So that's what I want to drive home here, is that Ephesians 6:4 is don't exasperate your children, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And I think exasperation happens when we're disconnected with our kids. So our initiative here in this piece of the 4-point strategy is indeed to connect to a new level of relationship as our children mature, and as we mature with our relationship with Christ. You see, there's a maturing on all several dimensions going on. And our challenge is always to encourage our children to mature in their relationship with Christ as we mature together as they grow older. So that's I think Chap Clark calls that sticky faith, doesn't he, Brett? That's part of the deal, is how can we really invest in our kids that they take this with them as part of who they are. And so that's our piece and our initiative and our effort with dads, is to provide some opportunities to truly connect to a new level of relationship in these environments. And finally, the lead piece is expanding the reach. We, as a ministry and as an old oil field hand, I hate to add people. So our thought was to engage the church and watch the body of Christ come alive. And that's really been a blessing to see that come together. This is a motley crew from Sagemont Church, 5 of the 8 dads that are down there. We meet every month for breakfast at IHOP. They're at Fuquay and I-45. If you're ever in the area, stop in. But James, the black gentleman in the middle here, has been quite the teacher He's got the gift of teaching, and he's taken it forward much like Chris Chaffin has taken it here at MDPC. And we've got just a good core group of dads that not only teach, they run a father-son retreat every year, they run a father-daughter banquet. It's a lot of things they've done inside the church that I couldn't begin to do as an outsider, you see. But I'm right there beside them in any way that they want me to be. I'll give a quick, this is the Dads of Grace.
Hello, my name is Andy Frizzell, and this is my daughter Susie, and I'm part of Dads of Grace because I'm a firm believer, and it takes a strong family to make a strong church.
So I'm excited. I think it's a chance for us all to get together and to learn from each other's mistakes. A lot of these guys have already been through this. I'm obviously going to need a lot of help, so I'm excited to gain that experience and advice from other fathers.
And as we work together to build faithful families focused on God, we all need to rely on each other to build strong relationships and build strong daughters and sons that'll go out into a broken and corrupt world.
Oh, I think it's going to be a blast. I think we're going to have a lot of time for fun and fellowship and getting to know your kid better, eating a lot of good food.
Shocker.
My name's Ed Williams, and these are my four kids. And I've learned that as a father, one of the most important things you can really want to do is be a good father. And so I hope to be surrounded by other men like-minded that just want to do a good job. I believe God has a plan for how to be a parent. And I think that the Bible spells it out pretty clear. And it's about community, it's about faithfulness, it's about hope and love, discipline. And this is what Dads of Grace should be about.
I got involved with Dads of Grace by getting to know Rick Wertz with the Faithful Fathering Initiative. Rick has led a number of father-son and father-daughter retreats at Choye. That really challenged me to think more about what made me a Christian dad, not just a good dad, but a Christian dad, according to the model set by our Heavenly Father.
I'm John Murphy, this is my family. Cooper, Wyatt, Rylan, Hudson, and Finley. And I'm excited to be part of the Dads of Grace ministry. Rick and myself met a couple times for breakfast as kind of a follow-up, and he pulled out a brochure he had from his Faithful Fathers, and I saw Shawn Williamson on it, and I said, I know that guy. Between the conversations of Rick, Rick mentioned he had started some other father groups at other churches, and I was really interested, and then he followed up with Miles Harper and Shawn, and it kind of got kick-started that way.
Trying to be a dad is a task that is very challenging. So in that challenge, I seek out fellowship from other dads. I've been given a gift by God. The Bible talks about children being a reward from Him, but there's also a responsibility. Being a godly dad means that I've been called to make disciples of my own children in my household, and being a part of Dads of Grace ministry means that I realize that I don't have to do this on my own. That God has called me to be a dad of grace, but also to share in fellowship with other dads here.
God has really blessed me with a glimpse of His glory through the Dads of Grace, through the MDPC dads, Sagemont dads, because that's really what we're here to share with you today is just what the Lord's been up to here through the partnerships and through just obedience. Our family verse of the year is John 14:23, to listen to His voice. Those that love me will listen to my voice and obey. And a Father will love him, we will draw close to him, make a dwelling place within him. And that's what our goal as a ministry is, to listen well to His voice and to obey as we go on. And these Dads of Grace and as MDPC dads have done that. I'm always struck by Joshua. Joshua, first chapter, there's 8 times God reminds Joshua, after 40 years of training, to be strong and courageous, and that's what men need to be, and that's what we're called to be. So I want to invite Shawn Williamson to come up and share. Grace it was the model outside. I wanted to see how we could do something. It would take 8 to 10 years of my relationship to get these core groups going, And Dads of Grace have done this inside of a year. They had their first event.
I met Rick probably about 5 years ago on a father-daughter being there retreat with my daughter Madison, who was probably around 11 at the time. And during that retreat, it was really an eye-opener to me, and it was kind of one of those things, you know, where my wife took my calendar and signed me up and said, you know, you and Maddie are going on this retreat this weekend. Yes, ma'am, I'll do it. And but I took away from it, it not only gave me opportunity to spend quantity time with my daughter, but also quality time, and reflect on what it means to be a Christian father. And so I was so impressed by that the following year I signed myself up to take my son on a similar Being There retreat. And those retreats really made an impression on me. I maintained a relationship with Rick after that in the coming years. And then about 2 years ago, Rick approached me and said, Shawn, you know, God's really placed it on my heart to plant these core groups in local churches to build fathering ministries from within the church. And he said, I'd like to see what that looks like at Grace. And I said, I think that's a great idea, Rick. And in my typical fashion, I procrastinated a little while. And then John Murphy comes up to me a few months later, and Miles Harper, who was also in the video, and says, hey, listen, you know this guy Rick Wertz? He's really he's got something that I think we need to incorporate into the church with these core groups. So about a year and a half ago, March of last year, in fact, we met together with Rick and talked about what would a core group look like at Grace. What is the recipe that'll really help this grow? And we really took advantage of a lot of the lessons learned from Memorial Drive and from Sagemont. And Rick said, look, grab 8 to 10 guys that you feel are going to have the leadership skills and the passion and the ability to lead this in your church. And so we did that. We hand-selected 8 to 10 guys, and we gave real careful thought not only to guys who had leadership skills, but also guys who spanned our demographics. Not really so much in terms of the father's demographic as much in terms of the children's demographics. So we specifically tried to choose dads who were fathers of toddlers all the way up through fathers of college students. And that's really been a blessing to us over the past year. In fact, it was September of last year that we had Rick come to Grace and give his personal testimony of busyness to faithfulness. And then we began to do some events at the church just to illuminate, as he says in the first point of the strategy, just to build interest. One of our first events was a camp out, and we were blown away. We kind of threw this thing together at the last minute, and we ended up having 50 dads and 80-something kids come to this camp out on the football field one weekend. And it was just a great opportunity to spend time together, to generate a little bit of interest. And through that camp out, we started to build a database of dads that were interested in pursuing this, and then we moved forward. We kind of had a lull period last year as our church entered a period of discernment where we changed denominational affiliation. But even through the course of that, we looked for opportunities to plug into things that were going on in the church, whether it be help out with the discernment events, volunteer to help with the youth, cook out for mission projects. We did a lot of things to stay engaged and in front of the church. And I think probably one of the things I haven't mentioned yet, and it's important to do, is that it was very much a lay-led effort. Rick walked right alongside with us, and some of the guys in our core group were pastors on staff, but primarily the bulk of our core group at Grace are lay members. So it really takes that type of groundswell or surge of the lay community, I think, to make it stick within the church, particularly for a church like Grace that's very, very staff-driven, very program-driven. So it was really a blessing to us to have that well received by the staff and to move forward with what we now affectionately call DOGS, or Dads of Grace. So we're really excited about this coming year. We're finally getting around to some of the deeper stuff into the strategy, which is the Dad's Armor Bible study, and actually beginning to do a bit of the connect or the educate piece. and dig into not just generating interest about fathering, but providing some biblical foundation for how to do that. And so we just had our first Dad's Armor Bible study last week, and it'll be a series that continues for the next several weeks. So just wanted to share that with you, and again, let you know that it's been a real blessing to us, and I see no reason why it couldn't work in any of your churches. So I'm happy and available to talk with you about what's worked for us, what we've struggled with, and share those lessons learned with you. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Rick. Hey, guys and ladies. There's an interesting statistic that I saw recently that says the most attended day of the year at most mainstream churches is Mother's Day. The least attended day at most mainstream churches is Father's Day. That strikes me because I noticed when I started getting involved in working with Rick and Brett Hurst on MDPC dads that we got a lot of really powerfully engaged moms in our church, and we don't have a lot of powerfully engaged, committed, emotionally committed, presence committed, faithfully committed, not just showing up in the pews, but showing up in the church, not just Sunday mornings. And it moved me, and I wanted to get more involved. When we, first of all, I'm Clint Harrington. I'm a single dad with a rare situation to have primary custody of my kids. I have a 15-year-old Hank who's a sophomore at Stratford High School, and a 8th grade middle school girl named Hannah. I know a lot of you guys in this room through small groups or boot camps or other dad type stuff, and I'm really happy that you're here today. So 3 years ago, got with Rick and Brett, and we had about 10 guys that were meeting probably about once every month to 2 months and trying to figure out where do we take this thing. And part of the challenge was how to create programming without making it feel like programming. How do we get dads to think, this is a cool group that I want to be with? It's not a boys club, but what makes it attractive? Am I going to have to go somewhere where I'm going to have to break out a workbook and figure out more theological principles that I learned in Sunday school when I was growing up as a kid? By the way, I grew up Baptist. I've been a 10-year member of a Methodist church, and I'm at MDPC now. So other than possibly the Catholic Church, I've got lots of very close Catholic friends I think I've covered, so I'm not coming from any type of partisan position on this. We all work for Jesus. So it was trying to find things that clicked for dads that would be cool. So one of the things that was already working fundamentally great at MDPC was Men's Life, which kicked off 13 years ago, Brett. And Peter knows about that too, and Dave Peterson, our former pastor. We had challenged one guy to find 10 guys, and we had 10 guys that did that. And that grew to 400 guys, I think, the first Men's Life year that we had. It's a group that stands about 150 strong, but from that platform, it gets dads here on Tuesday morning to hear dynamic speakers, to get basically a feel into what a collective group of dads that are loving Christ do. And we said, what can we do to spin off of that and create different columns that will spoke off of what was happening in Men's Life, because we have a small group breakout. We said we want to work on getting small groups going. We want to get dads to be engaged in a fun way, but hopefully they put their toe in the water of something that they realize they can do more. So we did a Dad Sunday, where we said we're going to teach every Sunday school in the class, in the church. We're going to do all the ushering, all the greeting, the children's sermon. Basically, for one Sunday, Dad, can you sign up for your kid's 4th grade Sunday school class and teach a lesson? All of a sudden, dads were realizing, I can do this. I can sign up for that for a semester. I can do that. Have you gotten into a small group? What's a small group? Well, we're doing a 15-minute small group at Men's Life. It's like that, but we do it for about an hour and a half, and we'll help tee it up for you. We'll even help you with a curriculum. So as of this morning, we got an 8th guy for our 8th new group of 8 to 10 men. And these are guys that meet once a week on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, going through material like Greg Ogden's Discipleship Essentials. But also coming back to, and those aren't all MDPC guys, there's a lot of Tallowood, MDUMC, Chapelwood, all these, it's not necessarily just an MDPC thing, and that's part of what we're trying to do. Our men's retreat was an actively participating rodeo. At first, people were terrified. I'm not going to go jump on a bull. Well, oddly enough, people jumped on a bull, and we gave away very authentic rodeo belt buckles as a badge of honor to show that they were there. What guy doesn't like that, right? So within that, we were able to weave in a message into what's going on with the rodeo. We had a very wonderful member of our church, Russ Allen, lets us use his ranch, and he just happens to have a hobby of producing some country music singers like Corey Morrow and Roger Krager. So we got Corey Morrow. So again, we found a secular artist that had the ability to talk about his Christian testimony, how he'd been broken and found Christ through all of it. That's a huge magnet. So we're just trying to create concepts that make it cool for dads to get off the sidelines and get engaged in the game. And we've had some initial success in it. We had a chili, barbecue, gumbo, and roadkill. We had our second last year. We'll have our third. I think we had about 8 or 9 entrants the first year. We had closer to 25, 30 last year. And we do that in February on Super Bowl Sunday. Again, there's guys from the fire department that come in and they're ringers, and they try to take all the prizes on all the awards, but they didn't do it last year. You did it the year before. But it's trying to come up with those kind of concepts educationally. So great. So now we're attracting them. What do we do with that? Now we're trying to create educational content. So Rick talked about Chris Chaffin, who's an attorney who has the gift of teaching. He's not an administrator. He doesn't want to organize the event. He doesn't want to do the recruiting, but set him up with a panel, give him some, he'll research it to death and present it in a phenomenally creative way that's attractive. One of those things was Tech Tip for Dads. You might see a flyer or two flying around here. And it was basically, hey, dads, don't leave it just to mom to be engaged in your kids' social media. Do you know what Snapchat is? Show of hands, who knows what Snapchat is? Who's on it? Whose wives are on it? Not many, right? The point being, every time you catch up to Facebook or Twitter or any of these social medias that all of our kids are using to connect, they're changing platforms. Oh, they know about it now. Change language. We have to stay close to that because that's where a lot of things are going on in our kids' lives. As fathers, I think in many cases we're the closest thing to God that our kids see. And that's a big responsibility, and we're going to fail. But why not do that arm in arm alongside with other men that are trying to do their best to do it, with educational help, with resource and fellowship help, with pastoral help, and getting engaged to find out about other things that are going on. So that all of a sudden it goes from, at least from our perspective, from an MDPC thing to an MDPC and Dads of Grace, and Dads of Sagemont, and Dads of Tallowood, and Dads of Chapelwood. And how do we start building this up into an aggregate effort to make more awareness for being a faithful father? Brett and Kelly Hurst have an incredible married program, Married to Life and Home Encouragement. And it's something that's not just MDPC, it's taken Houston and a collaboration with lots of other relational pastors and couples that are passionate about it across congregational lines. And my theory is, why can't we do that along dad's lines? So Rick and I have spent a lot of time saying, how do we take this phenomenal ministry that Rick has put together, and except you don't like me to use the word ministry, right? The mission, and spread that across Houston. 6 million people, lots of dads need more of this. So that's what we're trying to do with MDPC Dads, and roll that into small groups. I'm on our senior pastor nominating committee trying to find a replacement for Dave Peterson, and it's been amazing to canvass the country and the globe to see what does the new church look like, where are the 20s and 30s going, what attracts them. It is the small group. It's not to abandon Sunday school, but it's to say we want communal, relational activity. So MDPC Dads is really going to be focused on that going forward too. So thanks for being here. Love Jesus, and know you do too.
The different dynamics there are in for the two groups. You know, MDPC doesn't meet every month. Dads of Grace meet every month, but they have such an energy and such a maturity in their group that they call up the team and say, let's go, and they get after it. I'd like to introduce a dear friend over the years, Brett Hurst, as a staff perspective on how MDPC Dads has come alongside the church.
I like this collaborative energy that we have. Is this thing working? Am I going in and out?
You guys get closer to the mic.
Okay. Sorry. It's kind of like reunion day today between Steve Craig and Joseph Clam and some of the guys when we were all doing youth ministry almost 20 years ago, and we were sharing ideas back in those days. That was back in the days when, as a youth minister, I would do parenting classes, and I'd stand in front of parents as a young dad and say, you got to have a relationship with your kids. You got to have empathy with your kids. And these Memorial area parents would pretty much get ticked off at me and go, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We want 10 steps on how to clamp down on my kid better. and realized I was in over my head. My wife and I were all teed up. We thought we were going to write a parenting book. I have a 24-year-old daughter, but once we had a 20-year-old son, we said, we're going to can that idea till he at least gets to the age of 35, then we'll revisit it. But I just want to say, Rick Wertz, when I first heard him, I think it was over at Heritage, you were speaking one day for a Saturday morning thing, and I heard what was coming out of his mouth. I said, I want to get to know that guy. Reached out to him. We've had quarterly breakfast for the last 10 years. You should just go ahead and join our church because he's on every leadership team that we have that's connected with men. His vision is the reason why we're all in this room and we're having this type of conversation. The next step is to pray for somebody like Clint, at our church. Somebody that not only has vision and talent and skills and passionately goes after men, but also does it with a pastoral sensitivity. And we're talking all the time is we just need more of those guys, and we need to work ourselves out of jobs, as staff and as Clint being the current head of our MDPC Dads Ministry. We need to keep replicating ourselves. We need to keep giving guys leadership opportunities. So you've heard about how we do that around people's individual gifts of teaching or administration or just whatever idea they come up with. Basically, we're going to support it. If they've got a niche that we haven't even thought about as a way for a dad to plug in, we're going to create some kind of little sub-ministry around that. I think that's the main thing that I want to say about this whole dad's ministry thing is it's a tremendous opportunity. Clint was talking about the nonprofit that my wife and I started 8 years ago called Home Encouragement, and our goal is to uphold the intentionality of healthy marriages in the greater Houston area. Well, we're a sister program to Rick's ministry, frankly. In fact, Rick was very instrumental in encouraging to us when we started years ago. We feel like we're a 1-2 punch. If we can get the dads, and we can get marriages, from healthy marriages come healthy families, from healthy families come healthy communities, and on it goes. But the opportunity to, we can attract guys in with the cool stuff of the programs, the campouts, all that kind of stuff. Then we can get them interested in the teaching components because they want information. They want to know how to do this. A lot of this stuff doesn't come naturally to us, and there is no owner's manual for us to, figure out how to be the world's greatest dad and all that kind of stuff. But it's beyond that. I've noticed with our work in home encouragement, and I think it's the same thing with this dad's ministry, this is an inroad into conversations that matter. I've been in full-time ministry since I got saved in college some 32 years ago, and I've heard every evangelistic formula and technique and so forth, tried them all. These types of ministries are what will eventually get people into questions and conversations that matter. It starts with a desire to get equipped. How do I do this? Oh my gosh, I've never been a dad before, or I've never been a husband before. And you can give them the 10 easy steps, let them run with that for a little while. They come back and go, well, that worked, but it didn't work for very long. Well, if you really want to know how to not be a selfish pig, let's have another conversation, and then we can really, talk about the things that matter. We'll talk about have transformation conversations. So I think this is the quickest inroad into those evangelistic conversations that matter than anything I've experienced as a pastor. So I'm indebted to Rick and to all of you. Thank you for, our goal is, Clint kind of alluded to this earlier, we want to leave there no place to hide for anybody in Houston. Any man in Houston, they're going to be trapped by all of our churches, doing this collaborative ministry together, and I mean that in a good way. They'll be encouraged to have some kind of portal that they have no excuse to not get plugged into. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Brett, Clint, Shawn, blessing. I hope you've gotten a glimpse a little bit better than what you got from me flapping my gums up here. But what I wanted to share is that what I know is that over the years we have We have been investing in leadership that engages dads, one family, one church, one community at a time, and we are seeing relationships strengthened through these core groups to allow the body of Christ to be the body of Christ in the community and the church beyond. Because you heard it said they reach across church lines, but they also reach across neighbors' lines, you know, to say, neighbor, you know, let's come to this overnight. It's an easy to plug into thing. We know, as was stated, that as Dad goes, the family goes, but if truth be told, we know this guy right here started this, right? He's the one that runs the house. But I wanted to just let you know that encouraging and equipping dads to be faithful fathers and is the mission, and to engage dads. We have just about 4 or 5 minutes left. I did want to open up for a question and answer time. Is there anything that's on your heart, anything that you've heard today, or anything anything you have a question about? Yes, sir. Yeah, how the collaboration across church lines. Well, I think this is a good example of that, and we've seen that in the community as well, that when we have an overnight, there's folks coming in from all over the place, and that's worked very well. That the energy is high, and the questions that come up after that is how can we complement this in our church. So that's a matter of the willingness, Clint's willingness to meet with Shawn and Miles when they came up with their, that's the heart that happens there. Yeah. I want to respect your time. It's 12:45. The challenge is this. In the middle of each of your tables is a binder. This binder has everything that we've just discussed and more. It also has a flash drive in there that has the video spots, the radio spots, a PowerPoint for the Dad's Armor presentation, lots of things in there. If this resonates with you, please take that and set up a meeting with me to follow up. Maybe we could have a core group meeting to follow. That first core group meeting reflects on the questions on the back of your agenda there. But you're welcome to take that, and with the obligation that you need to meet with my mug sometime. If it doesn't resonate with you, thank you for your time. It's okay. We just wanted to share what the Lord is up to, and if it's then just leave the binder on the table, and that's fine too. But I just thank you for the time that you've committed here, and I thank you for my brothers to share the testimony and all that has been on their heart, and how the Lord has worked through the respective groups. So let's close in prayer, and we'll rock and roll. Lord, thank you again for the many gifts and blessings in our lives. May we never take them for granted at all. The blessing of our relationship with you, you teaching us how to live that relationship in marriage and in family, and how we're to reflect that on beyond. Lord, you say that you'll turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. And Lord, I think that's some heart-turning stuff's going on. Something about this curse that tends to be in the back of our mind, Lord, but I know that you're not done with us yet. We want to step up as men of you, as men in the body, across all lines, to engage dads in raising a godly generation. So Lord, be with each family represented here, each church represented here. Keep your hedge of protection around us. Show up in a mighty way. Be glorified every day as we turn to you, listen to your voice, and obey. Draw us closer to you, deeper in relationship with you. So watch over us and guide us, protect us from the evil one. I lift these things up in the name of the risen Lord Jesus the Christ. Amen. Give them heaven. Thank you for your time.